right.
No.
I don't wanna go downtown. I don't wanna mess around. All I think about is your lips, your kiss. I don't wanna have a drink, have a random little fling. All I wanna do is show up at your place and say, let's try this again. I wonder if you think I'm me. Did you?
Happy Friday, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy Friday. What's up,
I'm
everybody?
dressed, Nikki.
Uh-oh, I'm frozen. Hang on. Oh, wait, there we go. Sorry.
Yeah.
My computer had to be rebooted, so, it's going to pop up windows and all that stuff. Well, yeah, I am dressed for the occasion because I think the topic is really leans towards making America great again and how we do that, and true and what true patriots decide to do in a moment of crisis.
Yeah, appreciate that opening.
Or a perceived
opening
crisis.
Well, it's actual crisis, but America was founded on a crisis, and sometimes people don't really. I think someone I saw this post the other day where someone said that you would need people don't really show their step up and show what they're capable of unless there's a crisis. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier in the last shows about why do we have to wait for things to be on fire to learn how to use a fire extinguisher, or that's kind of thing. But it is what it is. So I can lament about that, or I can, we can still teach people how to use the fire extinguisher. And once we put the fire out, we can talk about how to fireproof the house.
Well, okay. Let me.
You didn't start the fire.
Let me push back.
We didn't start the fire.
Let me push back a little bit on that. When the country was founded, there are people who came over, colonized, tried to come over and get more land, get more sources of food, all of these, kind of original expansion ideas, way of thinking, because, they weren't going to survive without it, right? But the crisis was taxation without representation, correct? And that's when they all activated and got to work. So it took a crisis to create the country in the first place.
Oh, I'm okay. I mean,
right?
I think we're saying it differently, but we're agreeing on the point. Like Maya was saying that the crises do tend to bring either the best out of us or the worst out of us.
Okay, gotcha.
People tend to either retreat.
Yeah, I guess I was pushing back on the idea of people don't learn how to use the fire hose until there's
but I think if
you need the fire first.
If you've seen some of my posts lately, and I don't get on X that much, I've just my criticism was really about how we are presenting the fire, and my criticism was about how on the conservative right-wing influencer side that they bank on telling you that your hair's on fire. Click to find out more instead of telling you how to put out the fire.
Okay.
Hey, guys? What are we talking about? Are we talking about what's the fire? What's the fire?
Yes, exactly. Let's be specific here.
I'm a little lost. Sorry.
Well, I have specifics, so I'll start first because I'm really hot and bothered this whole week. For me, the fire is the New York City Democratic primary, and if for those of you who haven't been following, yet again, people didn't show up to vote, and now we have this guy.
Don't mess with the Zoran.
Yeah, who I think his bio is that he's only been a citizen for 7 years. Maybe that's not an issue, right? But he's just a combination of the worst things. The Islamists and socialism combo, like a bento box. A little bit of everything. that the extreme left has to offer. And now he is on track, or at least it's what everyone thinks, to be the next mayor of New York.
Okay, so let's tackle one thing at a time. The first thing you said was people didn't show up to vote. Who didn't show up to vote? And what? How do you think that needs to be changed?
Yeah, so statistically, we've always said that in New York, just going back for decades, right, the voter turnout has always been very low. You always hear the people say, you get what you vote for, right? People in the red states always point the finger at people here in New York. So, that's what you voted for. But the stats show that it's only a fraction who always show up to vote.
Okay, so let's be specific, though, because this is a primary. This is a Democratic primary in a very Democratic city.
Yeah.
Okay. So why aren't people showing up to vote for a Democratic Party primary when the majority of the people living there are registered Democrats?
Oh, I can give you a whole seminar on it, and it's not something we could discuss at length here. But the way I want to approach it is that I've always seen that there are solutions around it. So I'm not calling it out like it's not something we can't fix. And one of the things I want to do is just showcase some data and stats of where we can improve when it comes to voter engagement and getting people and understanding why there is 2/3. That's the rough stat. 2/3 of whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent in New York don't turn out to vote. And understanding why.
But you cannot solve a problem you don't understand why it exists. So you can go and knock on doors as much as you want. Thank you, Baxter. But if you don't understand, people aren't in a ballot going to a place to go and vote these people on this ballot, then you cannot solve that problem. And Baxter agrees.
Gallery there.
He's just being
peanut gallery.
Well, I could just tell you, I'm going to give you my because I've been tracking this for a while. Where I think one of the problems is one of them, not all of them. Okay, but this is just one of them. Is that it's a common problem that people don't even track election dates. That's the case. When I do my own surveys here, like they just like, wait, there's an election going on. I didn't know about that. So the
people track and keep track of things they care about. If they don't care about this, they're not going to put it on their calendar. It is not going to be on their radar. There's a reason they don't care about this. One is either they're apathetic and just in general and don't care about voting and they just want to live their lives, or they don't believe anything is going to change in their circumstances by going to show up and vote.
I'm gonna like just kind of push back a little bit on that. Well, that may be true half the case, but sometimes if it's also the case where it's not clearly communicated that there is, that certain dates are important on people's radar. So let's say if you just moved to New York City, okay, you like say an immigrant or whatever, you lived there for 4 or 5 years, you would have to prove to me that the people, like at least on the other end, have made an effort to make this very prominent, make certain dates prominent, and that's not the case. That's not the case, Nikki. That's true. I mean, you may get occasional like
who are those people? Like, you got to be specific. Are you saying
Board of Elections?
The party hasn't made this? The Board of Elections?
The party and Board of Elections. Party and Board of Elections
supposed to do? They send out a flyer, or
they're supposed to send out a flyer. They send out these communications, and that's not the case. That's what I'm not seeing in New York City. So that's one.
Okay. So you're saying they did not send out any kind of notice that there was an election coming?
No, absolutely not. And this has been happening for the last 20 years that I've been living in New York. You may on occasion get a piece of horribly designed piece of flyer that doesn't even tell you what it is. It looks like junk mail, okay? And most people just throw it in the trash because like, what am I looking at here? And these are often done by the candidate themselves. Very, very expensive to produce, to be fair. Like, it would cost about 10 or 20K to print out a mailer. So you don't really reach everyone. You just have to maybe sit with your own your campaign manager. You have to decide very strategically who to mail these to. So you don't really reach everyone. It's not like 100% of the voters would get any kind of notification. That's a fact, because your budget limits that. That's why they go fundraising, right? Because presumably you need more of the money to increase your visibility.
Okay, now how many unregistered voters exist in the state of New York?
I don't have that.
Or in the city, all 5 boroughs who would actually show up if they knew there was a primary election.
I don't have that stats, but I can tell you how many registered voters there are in New York. So when your budget is limited as a candidate, you only want to target, like, you have to choose between, like, do I deploy my mailer to unregistered?
Okay. Well, wait. I'm sorry, because that's a moot. That question isn't relevant if are the New York State primaries closed to only registered voters?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in this case, you would only want to market to people who are actually registered to vote.
Yeah, and it's often the case with any kind of candidate, even wealthy candidates, right? They have to be very judicious in looking at who do they want to send the mailer to. You can get very granular. The database allow you to do that, and you would go by people that, I don't know if the data will show you that the person has voted before. So sometimes it's a crapshoot. So let's say you have a pool of people that you think are going to show up to vote. You may not have enough budget to reach all of them.
Okay.
So maybe you kind of
pick the most likely voters.
You think, but that's like pulling going to the casino. It's a gamble.
It's not. They have stats though. They know that. They have people who put together that information and give it to them. They look at the people who voted in the last 3 elections or so, and then they have those stats available to them.
Yeah.
So it's not really it's not technically a crapshoot.
Presumably. I mean, I'm just kind of projecting here from my experiences on the GOP side. So for this election cycle, I don't think I have a problem telling this. I kind of switch registration so that I can participate on the primary on the other side. Okay. But what I'm telling right now from that experience, right? They probably have stats that I have voted before. I'm probably signs that I'm more of a motivated voter. So I'm telling you just from that. I saw very little.
Not if you switched, last minute, like you might be, I don't know, you might not be a person that they would target.
Okay,
so let's just go back to general case though. Let's not just look at you specifically though. That's what I'm trying to get at here is, okay, so is it if the candidate reaching out, the Board of Elections reaching out and notifying people that there is an election, hey, come make sure you're registered to vote, and then make sure you show up to vote is one thing. Then there's the party endorsed candidate. So the Democratic Party votes, the Central Committee members vote on a candidate that they want to endorse or not, or choose not to endorse. They may choose not to endorse for the mayoral race or whatever race, but then the party itself also gets out the word, and then you have the individual candidates who are getting out the word to kind of most likely voters kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's the voter.
Yeah.
All of these, kind of need to be in play, and for people to actually, get the word out and then show up and be motivated to go and vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. I'm gathering a sense to you that you're basically, because from me, to me it seems like the driving force really is that the people are not motivated to get out there. Honestly, I think there's other issues that you're pointing out, but If people really care about something and really want and believe that they can affect change by doing that thing, they are going to do that thing.
Yeah, but Nikki,
Isn't
I'm
that-
not
isn't
ready
that
to.
what Zoran's people did? I mean, they're the ones that feel that way, and there's
Okay.
a
Yeah.
reason why they do, and
Yeah.
Cuomo people don't. You know, because
Yeah.
Okay. But
Cuomo,
I want to push back on that because again, I'm just
Okay.
telling you from the society specific in New York City,
Okay.
and
Yes.
as someone who someone who
concede to
does
that because I'm not a New Yorker.
yeah, no, I'm not using that to like cancel out your idea. I'm just saying that from what I see here,
You know that you guys know the people
and just
there.
what
and what
I'm
they're-
seeing here,
yeah.
and maybe this is probably true in your area too, right? Because I'm not ready to like say New Yorkers are, generally they don't care about it, because for that to be true, I have not seen the level of kind of marketing and visibility for these states to be pervasive enough for me to like kind of like write off New York, like New Yorkers in general, right? Because I expect, like, and you can ask Eric and I, we work in an industry where we can kind of track like how much campaigning or communication, mass communication you need to put out there for you to like say you've done your part. Now it's really the other, the market to respond to it, right? To say, well, they don't really care, they're apathetic. And I'm saying that I have not seen anything, at least from the people who are managing the campaigns and managing these election cycles, that they have done enough to make this visible.
Okay, well then let's go back, because we need to be very specific about the people we're talking about. Who specifically didn't show up? Like, what demographic didn't show up? Because that's really significant. If that particular demographic, is apathetic, then that's a whole different story.
So the demographic is for the New York primary. It's the new Democrat primary. The numbers are, there are 3.3 registered voters in New York City. Okay, we only got about 3.3 million Democrat voters in New York City. Okay, only a third showed up for the primary.
And how is this? And you're saying, is this been consistent, or is this kind of a new thing?
This has been roughly the pattern for the longest time. Okay. And I can tell you right now why I kind of want to push back on the ideas that people don't care. Is it really more of people don't care, or they don't know? Because I can concede that people don't care if they know. That's one thing, right? If they know already but they don't care, it's one thing. But if I find out that you didn't know, then I'm not ready to say you don't care yet.
See, I disagree with that. And particularly, I know this particularly for Black voters, for Black people that I've talked with and spent time with over the years, Democrats in my own city, and including and some Republicans, but mainly the Democrats or non-registered voters who choose not to show up. They do it because they don't think their vote matters. They do it because they are kind of hopeless about politics, and who's the people who've been in control over the last 6 decades at least have not helped them in their personal position.
That's the way most voters feel, I think.
I know that, but I'm speaking from the people that I know. I don't, and I speak with about this. And so if that is a demographic, and the reason why, and that is a demographic that has decreased its turnout for primary elections. So I
want to connect back to what you said, because I'm actually not necessarily disagreeing with you, Nikki. I'm just saying that it is true that there are also quite a number of people in New York, at least, that are not connected to this idea that they can make a difference too. I don't disagree with that. Correct. I'm just saying that we also have to recognize, at least in New York, that if you say we all four of us here want to put an awesome candidate, okay, that we also have, it's expected of us to kind of make this very visible, like to engage, to inform them, hey, this is a date A, B, just like I don't know why I keep going back to healthcare because that's the field I do in advertising. Like, if you want a patient to show up on a certain treatment plan, you have to, I don't know, you tell me if I'm wrong, right? Is it the patient's responsibility? I guess it is, to keep track of when they have to show up to clinic. But but would the oncologist also, like, hey, Mrs. Smith, don't forget your appointment too, kind of thing? Like, is there like meeting in the both, like in the middle kind of thing, or is it like, hey, if you don't show up in your appointment, then that's your problem? Like, how involved would the healthcare provider be involved in getting the patient to remember dates?
Well, right now everything's automated by computers and electronic health records. So like that's sort of it's an automatic thing, and so that's why there is quality data that actually, shows that, if you do remind people, they're more likely to come, or, send a reminder notification. Now, granted, there might be some information overload and people are really annoyed with technology, and, it depends on the method, right? But yes, there is a sort of a double responsibility, but I always start with the individual. And again, what are your motivations? If your motivations are to get healthy, to stay healthy, prevent illness, then you are going to make that a priority for yourself. Knowledge is another thing. If you are doing something, if you're ignorant about what exactly it is required for you to maintain your health or to get healthy, then, part of that is on you. But part of that is if the resources themselves are not available to you, and they're not made available to you because there is some effort by a public health agency or a hospital to kind of prevent you from knowing this information. I'm not saying that that's happening. I'm just saying that just would be an example. So if that stuff is not available to you, then you don't have the ability to figure it out. But on the other hand, you do have yourself. You understand that if you eat certain things and more of those things, or don't exercise as much, as you are, don't expend as much energy as you're taking in, then you're going to get fat. Everybody knows this. This is intuitive type of a sense too. So I always go back to the individual and their individual choices. But I think that we can't. We can speculate, kind of on this kind of theoretical topic, but I honestly think we need data. Like, we need to be talking about actual data instead of just speculating.
Did you have some data, Perseus?
I have just to showcase to give you a snapshot of what who turned out to vote in the primary, so you can just get an idea of. Hold on a minute here. So let me just pull this.
Obviously, the commies showed up.
Yeah, but where I'm always coming from is and I want to get like Eric to weigh in, and then Paul too. Is that everything I've said, I know is kind of seems general, but it just comes from like looking at stats. So what we're looking at here is the number of people. So let me just kind of frame this, okay? Just keep in mind, in New York City, registered Democrat voters are 3.3 million, roughly, okay?
Okay.
About close to 1 million showed up to vote.
Yeah.
Okay. You have 43% there. Those are the ones who voted for Zoran, meaning that there was more than that did not vote for him. That's something to keep in mind. It's very important. Now, there's something in New York City called ranked choice voting. I don't know if you have that where you are, Ricky. Do that ranked choice voting? It's this very strange system where you get to like bundle 3 candidates. And I myself personally don't know the math behind it, but you could see that it kind of did the job of kind of splitting the non-Zoran voters, because if
actually, it wasn't a factor. It wasn't a factor because Zoran won on the first line, so they never actually had to aggregate anything below him.
Okay, but I think the general consensus, at least with the Democrats in general, okay, never mind that they were whether you were for Cuomo or not, was that even this fragmented non-Zoran voters were more than Zoran, so that is very telling. For people who are interested in trying to figure out what the next step is to beat him in the general elections, right? So now there's talk of, can we gather all these people here who voted for like all these split candidates? Can we come together as a coalition, and then numerically the numbers there to prevent Zoran from winning in the general elections? And keep in mind, this is just a primary. We have not accounted for who may show up or may not show up in the general elections, right? In general elections, it's open to everyone. You're going to have the people who, independents, and the rest of the Democrats who.
Okay, so
so this is the thing.
I've been quiet, so I'm going to weigh in here a little bit.
Yeah.
In New York City, what you have to understand is that I saw this happen in my district in Queens, New York 14, which was AOC's district when she won it. There is the Democratic Socialists of America. It's a stronghold for them. There are tons of younger millennial, Gen Z voters that are really psyched about anyone that gets them in a dander about inequality and all the climate change and all the Israel, Palestine, all that stuff that they're carrying with them from their miseducation is just like waiting. They're just waiting for that person with that Obama magic to charisma to spin up all of those ideas. And when that happens, they come out en masse because it activates the zealotry gene that they have that's latent in all of them. So when AOC beat Joe Crowley, who was my rep in way back when, they have a flawed establishment candidate who may be a non-entity for one reason or another, and then you have this groundswell of people. These aren't just voters, okay? These are these are missionaries. These are people that flood the subways, that go out and they knock on doors, they accost you, on the way to work, and they have that gleam in their eye. Okay. This is what actually, makes a phenomenon like Zoran work in a primary where you're right. There's going to be less turnout than in a general, even though the general is pretty lame too. So, like, rather than focusing, I think, on the operational difficulties about who knows there's an election or, do you care enough? I mean, it's really that in a primary, you can activate the zealots and win resoundingly by touching in the psychological, limbic system in a certain type of voter, which tends to be a white, overeducated or miseducated liberal. And like, that's what you have to address. You have to get the silent majority of New Yorkers out. You have to try to get a single alternative. So
what's the equivalent of that for the non-Zoran pool?
Well, you don't. That's the thing. You have to vote. You have to get it where it's a vote against him. And, and that means painting him as a socialist and a communist, which he is.
But you kind of indicated something too about, you kind of said that they were evangelists, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about getting people aware of things. That's what evangelists do, is getting people aware that there is a bit.
Yeah, but you need a figure. You need a charismatic. Either you need a charismatic figure, like in Zoran. There's a lot of things. He's also charismatic. He's polished. He has that Obama glow. Like, that's people like that. And
yeah, but also back to
my point. You need the people who support him, who are willing to go out and evangelize for him.
Okay, but the point is, someone was out there evangelizing more than for the other product. So the product A got more evangelizing than product B, right?
Yeah, because product A
is the base for product A was so motivated to believe they were out there in everyone's face maybe not all of the entirety, but their energy was there. So the question I have is, sorry about that, is sorry, people hitting me up for money. Don't mind that. You know, what does it look like for product B, evangelist?
Not A, because A is dangerous. That's what
I don't know. What's product B? That was what I was trying to get at.
Product B is anyone, and probably the best product B is Adams. I'm just gonna, he's the product B.
But he's not on this. He's not in this primary. He's an independent.
No, I know, but I'm talking about the general because the primary is over.
We're past this. We're talking about primary.
Okay.
So in the general, you gotta have someone who has evolved, frankly, politically.
So who's going to be the evangelist for product B in the general, right? And
the evangelists for the product B in the general are going to be the establishment Democrats. They will have to be the ones who get out the message. This is exactly what happened in the general, well, in the Democratic primaries in 2020. Do you remember Bernie Sanders was ahead until they got to South Carolina? And South Carolina pulled out a heavy win for Democrats. The establishment, including the Black civil rights leaders establishment, part of the establishment of Democrats, pulled out a win in South Carolina by getting Black people, Black voters aligned for Joe Biden, because they know that most Black voters are not going to go for the socialists. So that changed, that shifted the momentum for the entire race.
That's a very resource. Yeah. However, Adams is a flawed candidate in that regard.
I know, I get that, and so is Cuomo. But what is this is what my question is. This is why I'm asking. So kind of in the general, like kind of national wise, if there's some national interest, if there's some, kind of financial interest, in New York, the people who have that most influence, who see a threat to their, to their sort of established real estate and their established power, then they're going to come out and advocate for Adams.
So I'm glad you brought
he's going to be at least a threat to them. But my question for you though is, I have a question. What is the current establishment Democratic Party? What is their makeup? Are there more ultra progressives who support Mamdani in the party itself, in the party infrastructure, or is it still kind of old?
I think there's a lot. I think that what we're seeing is the influence of the DSA on the Democratic Party. And it's a very powerful influence.
Okay.
These are the activists.
So
they're now the
central committee members, the state.
Yeah,
the state party is full of these people.
Of course, at the upper echelons, they're more establishment, but they rely on that lower stratum to actually, they've been sort of using. It's a mutual use situation. Where the establishment's been using them to actually do the grunt work, but now the grunts are saying, the grunts have a lot more radical politics than the generals. So now this is sort of a revolt of the grunts.
So I'm going to give you my take on this. Okay. You were asking like the establishment from my perspective here in New York. There was a establishment before. There isn't a establishment post-Trump anymore. Everything's kind of fractured. You have these up-and-comers now, and then you have the people like the OG Democrats, whose interest is like, I don't want you to mess up my lifestyle in the Upper East Side. So it's very fractured.
But I'm not talking about theoretical. I'm talking about actually who is running the party. Who's the chair of kind of local
you could
county committees and state and state committees. Who are actually the people in charge?
I don't have the name of the people. If that's what you're asking.
No, not the name, but like what do they represent? So
you could tell this. So this, what you're looking at here, is a very good snapshot of where you think leadership is. My answer is there is currently no leadership. That's the problem.
Okay.
There wasn't like someone that says, there's someone that says, we are establishment and these are the far fringe. There isn't that demarcate. It's not clear anymore, at least from my perspective, right? So that's why this what this snapshot represents. It's like, okay, it's a kind of like leaderless, right? Who's really leading the establishment and who's leading the far left? It's not clear anymore. And then
but
Bill
I think
Clinton,
we're talking about two different things, though. I think you're talking about like who are the leading voices, who are the people following behind, right?
There is
because
no
even,
leading voice.
Because even in the Republican Party, look, we have Trump as the head of the party right now. But when you actually look at each kind of central committee level, there's still a lot of establishment people who are in charge of our state level and central committee politics. So hang on. But the populist people, are making their voices heard through their votes and things like that. But in terms of the party infrastructure, that's what I'm asking. Is there there's two different questions. Who's in actual like kind of fiscal control, and who is actually in leadership in terms of like who is most vocal, who are the people getting behind, are two different things.
And my answer to you in New York, it's very fractured and there is no leadership. And that's a fact, because if you're going to look at all the deep pocket Democrat donors, there are establishment types, or used to be. They're like the kind of political, look at Bill Ackman. He's a Democrat, lots of money in New York. He's not for Zoran. But then you have Bill Clinton the other day coming out saying, congratulations, Zoran. So there's
that was not Bill Clinton tweeting that.
What?
Bill Clinton did not make that tweet.
But you see
what that one, that's just as believable as Biden putting out a tweet.
Politics in New York now, in New York State, is not as organized, as sensible. It would make sense, like say where you are, Nikki. It's very fractured. Okay, so you have people with a lot of money living in Westchester who may support Zoran, but then you have people with just as much money in New York City, Democrats, who don't want to support Zoran. So traditionally, those two were together. Okay, they represented the establishment. Now no one knows who the leadership is.
Okay, but see, I put the donors in the same rank as the actual people and who they get behind. I kind of,
Yeah, but you wanted to know who
the people who are actually in charge, like who sit on chairs and sit in elected positions on the party, that's different.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you, here in New York, the donors are the establishment. They are the ones who drive the thing. So you may have people being committee members. That's immaterial. Those are nominal. Those are just positions. The real face of the party establishment are the donors. And I'm telling you right now, it's like, all right, one is for Zohan, one is not for Zohan. Okay. So, all right, Eric, you're deadly silent. What do you have to say about all this?
It's sad. I mean, this guy's he's a Marxist. He's a joke. His ideas are naive and dangerous, and it's really sad that so many people actually believe this shit. I do think that you guys brought up some good points. The Democrat machines in these big cities are really a thing. They're so powerful. And I think what we're seeing in New York City, and we've seen this in Chicago and other places, is when that machine, it's very powerful if it's a D against an R or a blue against a red. But when they sort of try and grapple with it and use it against themselves, it's very interesting to see how that sort of thing susses out. We saw this with Bowman, right? You mentioned AOC, Paul. But during the same wave, Bowman ousted Elliot Engel in Westchester. And, Engel and I forgot the guy's name in the Bronx, but they were, I wouldn't call them blue dogs, but they were not the modern Democrat. They were not modern progressive Democrats, more old school, much preferable, frankly, to this new crop of Marxists, again, these socialist sympathizers. But watching the money this, and I hate the phrase dark money, but this is like, I mean, it was so well funded. Bowman, and Indivisible, these million, billions of dollars that go into these groups, and fund these absolutely insane radical people to attack, decent Democrats, from the left. It was very interesting to see the establishment, right? The New York Democrat establishment, especially in Westchester, kind of watching them respond in real time to Bowman, because Bowman came in from nowhere. I mean, he was this public school teacher from Mount Vernon, and he broke every rule, and not in a good way. Like, he lied, he smeared, he called Elliot Engel every name in the book, and they were the massive, super expensive attack ads going against this guy. He wasn't my favorite, right, Engel, but it was everything that was thrown at him was, just below the belt and completely treacherous and completely awful. And it really was like the ushering in of this new era of politics. And it's so degrading and damaging. And you hit on something else, both Nikki and Paul, which is this guy has the sauce. He's like this, magnanimous, supposedly fun dude. You want to hang out with the fun socialist and grab a beer at his socialist barbecue with him. And I've been thinking the last few days, do the Republicans really have anybody who, like, the Democrats really seem to operate on this failed theater kid mentality. It's, and I'm not saying the Republicans are immune from it, right? But it really does feel like it's way more prominent on the left, which is, the Jasmine Crockett's, the AOCs. These are people that, if you look in their past, they're not who they are. They have crafted these weird personas that are either focus grouped, or they've sort of sussed them out themselves to present themselves as these, more intersectional, characters that are frankly kind of insulting. Like, AOC grew up in Westchester. Like she grew up in the most expensive, highfalutin county in the United States. And she went to some of the best schools in the country. She went to an Ivy League college. And she was, just like a lot of people, bartending in New York, trying to make it. And then she was recruited by the Justice Dems and, crafted into this thing. I don't think that she's stupid. I think that she's fake as shit. I think Jasmine Crockett is obviously fake as shit. You look at,
well, I mean, look at Bernie Sanders.
Absolutely.
He is the perfect example of the socialist living a capitalistic life.
It is. Again, I'm not saying that, say what you want about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, she seems kind of legit, like you can disagree with her, but it feels like that she's kind of like a lot more.
Okay.
She's authentically stupid. Yes.
But yeah. I mean, she is who she is, I mean, I think that maybe the closest we have is maybe like Nancy Mace, but I would argue that she's nowhere near as bad, she's a lot closer to who she actually is. And then the last thing I'll say is that, this idea that, I skipped past the primary, like, I could see it coming. Like, this guy was totally surging. The zeitgeist right now was pointing, like, it was odd because people were predicting this guy wasn't going to win. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, he's obviously gonna win. Cuomo is so, his image is terrible. He killed all those elderly people. He touched all those younger people. And he was just so bad, and it was such a
elderly and molesting the young. I mean, it's just, you can't.
Somebody posted that, which is like, gee, maybe you shouldn't have killed all those people.
So, do you think? And I don't want to shift because I think this is where you were going to go with this, kind of with your hope building, Perseus. But since you guys are all New York, familiar with New York, do you think it was one? Do you guys think it was wise for Adams to pull out of the Democratic Party and go independent?
I don't think it was
And then
wise to do that.
two, do you think he has a chance in pulling it off?
So two great questions. I think he made a giant boo-boo dropping out. I don't know why he did that.
Do you think he would? I mean, like, do you think he actually would have won against this guy?
No.
He was
In the primary?
He had to. I think he had to drop out because
I agree with Paul.
He was damaged goods within the party because of his shift on immigration. Like he got, I mean, he was getting investigated. They had their knives out for him, and that was an act of political survival. It may not have been the right thing to do. I don't think it would have changed the outcome, frankly, because I don't think he would have.
That's what I think. I think he would have been more in danger of losing by staying in. Like he would have been. I think it was planned to get rid of him. Like
so the word on the street
in that way, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to answer your second question. The word on the street, and Paul, you can disagree with me. The word on the street, at least out here in this part of Queens, is that I know Democrats who say we're going to rally behind his independent, because he's on an independent ticket now, and that's what everyone's kind of panicking right now. Okay, the non-Zoran big donors in Manhattan, Democrats is like, okay, is there going to be an alternate coalition candidate that will show up, or maybe we have to circle the wagons around? What's that?
Silva and Cuomo both have to drop out.
I'm going to tell you something right now, okay? I'm going to, if anyone you're watching this in Indy, or I know I built this community called Indy Republican. I'm asking of you right now, don't waste your vote on Silva, please. Oh my God, this is stupid. Okay, please. Yeah. That stupid red beret. We're not in the 80s, 70s, and 80s anymore. Like, well, come on, get lost.
Look, just give him something. Give him a position within the administration.
No, don't even give him anything, Paul. Like, just
no. You've got to, because you've got to get him to drop out.
Wait. Okay, yeah, thank you. Because I was going to ask that. Who is that?
You got to. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying he should have a position, but kind of have to give him something. You got to throw him a bone, or else he's going to stay.
He's the Republican nominee.
Yeah. So, like, you throw him a bone, he's, whatever.
I'm rolling my eyes here. Okay, I'm just telling you guys, he may be the Republican nominee, but then Nikki and Paul and Eric, the GOP side just have the same problem too with voter turnout too. So maybe we can discuss, like, they don't know the dates, or they're not motivated. That's one thing. I'm just saying with Sliwa. Okay, well, I guess, yeah.
What were the other choices?
Sliwa, okay.
Wait, just going to finish up the answering the second question is that there's this hazy idea right now that we should all circle the wagons around Eric Adams, and that the numbers exist anecdotally, at least. Okay, it exists. Democrats, independents, and Republicans, and what have you, third parties just come and rally around and Adams, and we could beat this guy. And again, but the only thing is that people are have been trained to only see DNR.
Not in New York. I'm really gonna say
not
New
in
York
Cleveland
is
either.
an anomaly, and like all politics is local. New York politics, historically as well as I think still today, is very local. So, like, if you have like Bloomberg, right? Bloomberg was an independent. Giuliani.
Good point.
Abzub years. Like you have all these different things.
Great point. So wait, was Bloomberg elected on an independent line last time?
Republican first, and then he switched to independent.
But then he was elected as an independent, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
for his third term, I think.
Remember
he changed the rules.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I mean, we have and the nice thing about Adams is that he chose the city over the national the national party. He said, you know what's right? I'm going to do what's right for my city. And he can actually stand on that. I mean, there's a lot that I don't agree with him about, but he actually is evolving, and he's, I think he's got a legitimate claim to it.
And remember too how Adams won the initial primary, several years ago. And he was the one candidate in the Democrat primary who was not totally defund the police, right? Because he was a cop. He wasn't exactly a Republican on the issue, but he was like, maybe we just defund-ish, and that was enough to help him win. right?
I
That's how
remember him standing out as an outsider for
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
reason.
And he was the only one that had the courage to sort of, veer from that orthodoxy. Let me just share one more thing real quick here. I thought that this was absolutely fabulous. Can you guys see that? Oh no.
No. Is that Grok?
Yeah, hold on. It shared your screen for some reason, which is weird. Let me do this.
Oh, that was my Grok. I was asking Grok just to show the stats for New York.
There we go. So I thought, the Babylon Bee is hilarious. Democrats discover innovative strategy of promising free stuff to stupid people.
Okay.
I mean,
what is this?
It's funny because it's true. It's just, I think that this is why, I don't want to speak for everybody here, but this is why I'm depressed. And I'm assuming this probably is a large part of why you guys are like, God damn it.
Why are you depressed? Hold on a minute. You're the one that gave me depressed just now by talking about how he won as an independent, Eric Adams. And Nikki, this one is for you, okay? Let's just open up a good book here, okay? This one is for you, okay? The greatest of all, what's the greatest thing, I think is in the Philippians? Faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. So hope is in there. Just remember that. It's in the good book. That's why I'm always like, people say, you're always so hopeful and optimistic. Well, because it's part of my spiritual DNA. And it's what I want to bring to people here that,
Yeah, but your hope is not in a human candidate.
No, it's not in a human candidate.
Okay, I just want to make that clear.
It is the hope to tell you people that your energy should be hopeful. I'm not saying put your trust in, I can open chapter and verse about that too. Don't put your trust in princes, right? It's in the book of Isaiah. So I'm just saying that. So Eric, where are we going with this one? Is this supposed to be hopeful or depressing? What is this?
Well, no, I just used the word depressing and it turned the whole thing. I mean, I don't think anybody's, gnashing over this, but this, to me, this summed up the core of the split of the issue. This is what, unfortunately, a lot of millennials believe. Maybe it's distressing, right? And it's a motivating fact that there are way too many people, perhaps, a good portion of the overeducated white ladies, the boomer generation and their demon spawn, the millennials, they believe this. They believe these things. They look around, they see inequality, they see the unfairness of life. They live in New York City. These big cities, the income inequality is completely exaggerated in a lot of these places. And it's motivating. And there is this eat the rich jealousy, this childish naivete, embracing these sorts of issues and solutions that have been, disproven over and over and over again and caused massive misery and the deaths of tens of millions of people.
So Eric, when you're done, sorry, are you finished?
I guess so.
I haven't.
I just want to say something really quick here. I think that's stating the problem. You just stated the problem right there. And I've always, I've always been hopeful that between you and me, and I hope everyone else, that I've always kind of approached this like, if this was a problem that was presented to us as a marketing agency, what's the solution to this?
Well, I was going to get to that, which is no bailouts.
But that's not a perception building. We're talking about perception here.
Again, I think we're fighting this perception on every front we possibly can.
You mean no bailouts from federal government?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's my point about all this.
Same thing with
right?
California.
Which is these blue areas have historically not had to deal with the consequences of their idiotic actions. If you look at, California, even Chicago, like the money keeps pouring in. You go back to the 70s.
You remember what Gerald Ford said to New York City?
Absolutely. New York City dropped dead.
Yeah. And then what happened? They got Giuliani, right?
Yeah. He got shamed into bailing out New York. Right. But New York was so bad that we got Giuliani after that, of course.
Yeah,
but But again, like a lot of this stuff is going to take some tough love, right? It's like the immigration thing. It's like, no, you cannot make these decisions and expect the rest of the country to come riding in and making you whole again. Like the voters in these places must be bitten by the downsides of the dumbass shit that they're
I don't
voting
agree with that. I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with that. Because it's like burning down the entire city with the good people in it. And that's a problem for me.
Well, then it goes back to the good people that you've been talking about who don't show up to vote. Again, this is the way the world works. You operate on feedback, whether it's positive feedback or negative feedback. If you touch the hot stove and it burns your hand, you're not going to do it again.
I'm here to help to give the good people a chance. And that's why we're talking about solutions. You can't be like, from the safety of South Carolina, wherever you are, say, you guys get what you deserve, burn it down.
I can absolutely do that. And we should.
You can.
No, that's wrong. So I disagree with you.
Why are people in one state allowed to make, dumbass decisions and screw themselves over when everybody's telling them no, giving them warnings? They do it anyway, repeatedly.
Well, now we're generalizing everyone, and we can't do that. No.
It's absolutely what's happening in a lot of these blue areas for sure.
Well, I don't think it's going to get to that point. I really don't. I mean, I think I'm a little hopeful too.
You do not want New York City to be burned down, because I'm telling you right now, there will be a domino effect.
Well, but if you go back to the 70s, right, and you use that as an example, and it's a good example, it's a good analog. New York had corrupted itself and mismanaged itself into bankruptcy. There was massive crime. It was, he had Bernard Goetz out there defending himself, with a handgun on the subway, and he was getting prosecuted for it. And the Republican, the lame duck Republican that was in the White House said, screw you guys, suck on it. You did this to yourselves. He was right. I'm sorry. Like what? I'm sorry. You have to treat it like children. At a certain point, if your kid keeps, fucking up, you got to let your kid, suffer the consequences, or they're never going to learn for themselves. And you started off this entire, coffee chat by complaining that people don't come out to vote. And I would argue that this is the exact result of that. And how else are you going to learn? Are you going to go out there and chastise them into voting? No, I would argue that, watching their neighborhood degrade and their city fall is the best medicine that could possibly be administered here.
But people who vote, this is the sad, I mean, I just want to throw one quick thing in here. The people who vote for Zohran Mamdani are not the people who will suffer. Okay. Cause they're all from neighborhoods like Astoria and, Bushwick, that moving in, and like those messianic people, the progressive hordes, they're not going to pay. They're just going to go back. Maybe New York will be just less attractive to them, and they'll leave and they'll go back to wherever they can.
But that's the same point. That's the same point that Eric made. If the people who aren't voting are the ones who are going to suffer, and they're the ones who are going to be the one who need to be able to go back to Percy's original metaphor, to be able to learn how to use the fire hose when the fire starts. Those are the people who are going to be affected, and they need to I need to show up now. I need to be a part of this. I need to be a part of this machine. I need to be able to. And I bet Wall Street, if he does get elected, I do think that Wall Street's going to consider where they're based. The bulwark that New York City has in terms of finance and business, we saw that. That starting to waste away after COVID, right? It's just starting to to claw back, but we have the congestion pricing. There's all sorts of stuff going on in New York City that is jeopardizing that historical strength that they have, that tie that business and finance have to the city. And this is just going to be another nail in that coffin. And once that stuff starts to leave, find other places to go, it's over, man.
Okay, Eric, let me ask you something. What do you say? What do you say to the people who wants to have this idea of that there could be a counter-insurgent majority coalition to beat back Zohran? What do you say to them?
Do it. Save your city.
Okay.
Rah, rah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm
I
always an
don't-
optimist too, and of course, I share Perseus's belief and love of Christ, and I do always put my hope in God and the Holy Spirit, and I know that we're going to be all right. But I am also a realist too, and that historical precedent has been set. We've seen. I'm sorry, not precedent, but we've seen that history that Eric just talked about, where the city was practically ruined and then came back and clawed its way back. So that's where the hope is for me. Even if he gets elected as mayor, Mandani, and totally destroys the city, I still think there will be a pivotal moment, and I think the country will come back for itself. However, it is really important for people to see that this is New York State and New York City, California are really kind of drivers for the entire country. So if Republicans can't figure out how to hold on to red states, which can become purple and then turn into this, and Democrats can't control and hold on to capitalism either, it is concerning. For the entire country and the actual American premise itself. So I think because this is a Republican podcast, and that's our audience, we do need to also talk about what the Republican responsibility is in this, or independent podcast or whatever. And Republicans have to get better about talking about the benefits of capitalism. We shy away from it whenever the conversation comes up. The only person who has not shied away from it is Donald Trump.
Partly because they subsidize stuff.
He's been proud of what he's achieved, and he's made it clear in every single campaign that what he wants, what he achieved in his life, is what he wants for Americans. The rest of the Republican Party, this is why Mitt Romney lost. Mitt Romney lost because he did shy away from all of his money. He allowed people to attack him for his money. And but the Republicans will shy away from it. They'll shy away from what capitalism does. There are some negative effects of capitalism. We need to be able to be willing to talk about that and say, hey, no, this is a negative thing about capitalism. This is what I would like to do to fix this, and so that you have this opportunity too. And that's, to me, that onus is on Republicans.
Well, that onus is on all of us, not just Republicans. Okay, it's on all.
Sorry, but that goes
everybody who believes in capitalism, then yes,
that goes back to the exact issue, right? It's like, do you want free shit and to stick it to the man, or do you want to go down a rabbit hole of free market, Clearwater economics with me, and talk about how you know what I mean? Like
I know what you mean, but so my thing is, who's doing that? Who's doing that part? Like, product B is better. I'm not seeing it.
People are.
No, you keep saying that. I'm not seeing it.
Sorry. No, I'm not seeing it either. The only one I see doing it is Trump.
Elon Musk, right? I mean,
I'm saying everyone's going to do it. It can't be like these visible people. It has to be, this is the Korean mom and pop who made the American dream, having the little noodle shop.
There are, if you look at social media, if you look at TikTok and Instagram and these things, there are a lot of younger influencers and things that pop up that have like a shit ton of views, millions and millions of views and likes and stuff, where people talk about these principles, free markets, liberty, free, this sort of stuff. It's actually very popuy. The problem is we have.
I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing these.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm not seeing it.
The mega influencers.
Guys, I'm not saying that it's replete. I'm not saying that it's the entire. Obviously the media, look, the left in this country for my entire lifetime, and yours too, and even before, Hollywood, the education system, the bureaucracy, tech, Wall Street, every single one of our institutions, even the church to a large degree, unfortunately lately, are severely left. They're left. Like it is everything has been captured and driving this neo-Marxism, this bullshit. And like, what does the right really have anymore? It has like these weird pockets of oxygen in these areas, right? And the death of sort of traditional media distribution, the death of traditional Hollywood, the death of the music industry, frankly, like a lot of stuff that we're seeing is allowing conservative voices and libertarian voices and free market voices to kind of come up through and get air and exposure, where before, and I'm talking like just like 10 years ago, the only place you could sort of break free was Fox News. Everything else was captured, hard left, really was, right? Like these institutions that I just described that are captured by the left, and they have been degrading steadily over the last few years. I think that is a threat.
I would agree with you.
Positive, right?
I would agree with you that on the small pockets, but major influence, though, the people with millions and millions of followers.
Well, no, but look at even like if you look at like Stephen A. Smith and the Breakfast Club, and like like The View, I think The View is something that you can put over and just kind of dismiss, but like. I see often, clips from Stephen A. Smith and the Breakfast Club, which is, again, these are traditional Democrat.
And Bill Maher.
And Bill Maher, yeah, I'll throw him into, well, Bill Maher, I would argue he's like more of a libertarian. He's been, kind of coming around since COVID. But my point about, the Breakfast Club and Stephen A. Smith is they have these podcasts. It's very Democrat, blue, right? I think that they think that they're progressives, but every once in a while you'll hear clips where they're talking about the kind of stuff that we talk about. And there's always the light that comes in, they ask, you catch them asking the right questions and, pushing back on the things. They were, very against the Biden border, opening up the border, right? Where it was like, the traditional media was trying to say that, everything's fine. And then you had these guys being like, you know what, I'm going to break with my team over here, because this looks fucked up to me.
Yeah, but see, Eric, I don't think these are new voices, though. In the Black community, these are the voices that have been there. This is where
they're not new.
Even Democrats. Look at hip hop, for example. All of them talk about capitalism and making money and making an empire and doing all of this stuff.
Right.
Those principles are embedded in our culture, so those aren't really new things. They are openly challenging it, though. That is new. That is new.
Good thing.
And that is a good thing. So I agree with you.
Did you notice that 50 Cent, 50? I always overpronounce his name. 50 Cent. He's arguing with Zoran, because the dude has been like trying to bribe him, doing all these interviews and dropping 50 Cent's name. And he was like, "What are you doing?" I think he's
$230,000 to leave.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to bribe you to get out of the race.
I'll pay you $230. It was an odd number. It was like some weird.
It was $236,000.
Yeah, to leave New York.
I missed that.
Yeah, because Zoran went on a bunch of interviews, and he had some sort of little canned, thing where he was like, I'm going to raise the top income, the top tax bracket for high earners, and my friend 50 Cent's going to be upset about that. 50 Cent's like, you're not my friend. What are you talking about? And I'm going to pay you to get out of the race, you moron.
Eric, all I'm saying is that if this was presented to both of us as like an assignment, a design branding assignment, I think your approach would have been very different. You'll be like, yeah, we can fix this. Let's do some casting. Let's get some really fresh new faces.
Fix what?
Just the selling product B. Getting product B out there.
Oh, you mean an alternative to Zoran?
Yeah, just in general. I mean, just forget the whole political, like hot coffee roasting here. Just like, right, if you and I got a call, hey, I'm Eric Adams. I need help here. Right?
You know what? I think Adams is not without instincts. He's got good instincts.
He does.
He's a little bit cringe sometimes, but he's got good instincts, and I think he's I think he's in good shape if the stars align and other people kind of don't split the vote.
And I'm saying that there are enough talent between the all of us here, like, you know, help circle the wagon a little bit, do our part. That's all, you know, like we just think of it like product B. Let's how to put product B and evangelize it. Because we already talked about how they're great. Product A is good at evangelizing, but those tactics are not unique to anyone. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Go out there and spread the good news of product B.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's saying don't do that. It's just, you know.
What kind of saying don't do that? It was like, hey, you know, it's a lost cause, which people have a different way of saying it. It's not a lost cause for me.
No, but you have to take, you know, good, honest, hard looks at the realities if you're going to deal with them properly. And
yes, I don't want to run in circle. Yeah, I
people, especially, you know, young, you know, millennials, not the youngest, by the way, the youngest that sort of, you know, seem to be a bit more conservative and pushing back. But there are way too many elements of our society that believe that Babylon Bee post.
I understand that. I'm just saying that, you know, if a client came to us, Eric, you and I, we're not going to say, well, maybe we can sell product B by letting people die from drinking product A. Then they will appreciate product B. That's not, you know, that's not maybe
that would be the most effective marketing campaign in history.
Well, here, Mr. Client, this is how we're going to promote product B. We're going to let you the people die from drinking product A, and then they'll figure out that product B is better.
New York City is
our marketing plan.
Between being an analyst and being a participant, right? So, like, I think that's what we're arguing about. Like, you can do both, right? You can, of course, it's optimism of the will and pessimism of the intellect. You can analyze things and say, well, you know, maybe it's for the best. Maybe that's the only way they're going to learn if they do this. But then you do what you can, right? So it's like, I don't think it's an either or.
They learn from the 70s, right? What happened after that? It was terrible. It sucked.
70s, yeah.
That'd be a good message for Adam. They elected Giuliani. He literally fixed the city so well that it was on autopilot for 23 years until 2020.
Well, we're coming up to the hour, but I want to close with one happy bean from Nikki. I guess it's kind of like a happy bean, so we need that. But
you know
I
found a video, so let me see if I can.
I was going to share the injunction, the Supreme
Court.
It's
the same thing, but I found a video. So
is that a bet? Oh, okay. If you have found a better, should I share the first one or second one? The last one.
Either one is fine.
Let's see here.
At least there's some positive news here.
It's not okay. Thank you.
I enjoyed the conversation today. This is great.
Yes, that was a great pick me up. Thanks, everyone.
So for me to learn what's going on.
Let me share. Actually, I like this one a lot, so I'm going to share the second one. Give me a second here.
Okay.
Like this. And I just want to say, as I'm pulling this up, I really appreciate the diverse takes and that we have. And okay.
I was in questioning mode today. I was learning.
Justice
let me play that again.
Does look like a victory for the Trump administration. Justice Barrett is saying that the only way for justices to exercise this type of universal injunction in some of these cases is equitable relief. But she does not find evidence that that type of relief was granted to these judges. So they indicate that the administration is likely to prevail on this issue. All of that is going to be awfully good news for this administration. They have been really hit with these sort of Lilliputian attacks. There are all these individual district judges effectively freezing federal policy and programs across the country. So it does appear to be a victory. It may be a bit more nuanced, but so far it looks like a good day for the Trump administration. It does look like a victory for the Trump administration. Justice Barrett is.
Yeah, so the victory is not necessarily, they didn't make a ruling specifically on birthright citizenship. They ruled 6-3 against all these nationwide injunctions from these district court judges that they were exerting power that was beyond what was due to the executive branch. So this was exciting to see that they are not allowed to kind of keep overstepping. We'll see what happens afterwards, if they're actually going to just keep it up and what the actual activity will be.
It's bothersome that there's not going to be any downside for these judges for having done this. You know what I mean? Like that, you know, the sort of the qualified immunity of government workers in general is a problem. We have that judge in Minnesota that tried to, you know, protect and sneak that illegal immigrant out of her courthouse.
Yeah.
And it looks like that she might get off, like it's bothersome, that these
It
people
is very bothersome.
can pull these maneuvers with zero downside.
We need to hold Trump 2.0 to that. We need to.
Well, no, we need to hold Congress to that because they're the ones who can have the power to impeach.
Yeah. And nobody's calling for extreme anything, but at the very least, again, there's all these people that are in these positions, whether it's judiciary, Congress, bureaucracy, they pretty much operate with impunity, and they make these decisions that greatly impact our lives, that are outside the Constitution. And there really seems to be zero will to hold them to account legally, in any way. And it's a problem. And it goes back to what we were saying before about the bailouts. I would argue that a lot of people, these judges do this
shit, man. That was supposed to be a positive note.
There's no downside. I'm sorry. This is great news.
He doesn't go to church.
Going on a good note.
We thought we had a happy bean in the left. But no, it is good news. And
he doesn't go to church.
Sorry.
Send him a Bible.
I screwed up the bean. I screwed up the positive bean.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You're realistic.
Beans and you had some more bit of beans.
It's a good bean.
Bit of beans.
It's a good bean.
I'm just drinking at Starbucks.
Also, keep an eye out on the Mahmoud versus Taylor case, which is ruling is imminent from SCOTUS on that, which is the parental rights case in Montgomery County. I think the right of parents to opt out of gender ideology. So that's going to be
yesterday was the Medicaid can't be used for abortions which again I think is the abortion issue aside, it bodes well for government spending in these huge programs that are ruining the country, bankrupting.
Okay, that's the best happy beans yet from you, Eric. So we'll take that. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Nikki. I always love
our
menu of just a wide selection of different tastes from bitter to happy. So
in my defense, it wasn't a dancing kitten. It's a nuanced bean.
Yeah, I was like, "Where's my baby?"
You're right. It was not a dancing kitten, and it was not the lady who was trying to keep the ducks from mating. That's what I was going
to do that for next time. Well,
Nikki said I was related to that lady.
Thank you, everyone. I think I learned a lot from all of you.
No, I'm not.
Thank you. I learned a lot from you, and you kind of teach me how to just know how to accommodate different POVs. So until then, enjoy a great weekend, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.
Guys.
See you guys next time.